Now you're live.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for listening in to our Facebook Live here from the NDFU State Office. First, I hope all of you are feeling safe and doing your social distancing and abiding by the rules to keep this isolation going to try to get over the COVID virus, as it's just a terrible issue that we're facing. This item that we're doing here, this Facebook online, is to try to give you some information more on the agricultural perspective and what we're doing here in the office. I want to assure you that we are trying our best to keep the communications flowing. We are stepping up some of our digital media and some of the information we're sending out. We have weekly newsletters going out and everything we can do to help try and provide as much information as we can on the agricultural front. Along with that, as you know, we run an insurance company here. And even though we're doing a lot more of the social distancing work at home at the farm organization, we are abiding by the rules of the law to maintain what's necessary to operate an insurance company, and we're maintaining them separations and cleaning offices and doing our best to try to protect our employees as well as serve you as consumers. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. This is really about trying to answer those for you than for me just speaking to you. So go ahead, and I believe Tyrell will read the questions, as I will not be able to see them.
There's no questions yet.
Okay, we have not had a question yet, so let's talk about the $2.2 trillion package that was just passed. From an agriculture perspective, what we got was about $14 billion to replenish CCC, and we got an additional $9.5 billion to help livestock producers, dairy, vegetables, and other specialty crops. In both cases, we do not know what the program may look like, but it appears like it's likely we will see something in the line of an MFP payment, and then furthermore, maybe some direct cash payments to beef producers, which again in North Dakota is a very important industry. So we're hoping that we can start working and helping them draft the rules around how they may distribute that cash. Rural hospitals is a big issue for us. We've been talking to a few board members and a few administrators, and of course their concern is first and foremost is how they're going to be able to be structured to manage this influx of people coming in with the virus, but they have a separate issue on cash flow, because most of them make their money on elective surgeries and elective practices, and those have been basically shut off in preparation. So we really need to make sure that the federal government steps in, or even maybe the state government steps in, to keep these hospitals operating at least until we get to a point where they can go back and start generating some of their own cash flow. Second thing that I'll probably talk about is we've had some questions on helping rural grocers. We are currently putting together a potential plan to get some meat into the food bank system. It's not coming together as perfect as we would like, and that's one avenue that we've been trying to do. As many of you know, we have a truck that delivers to our restaurants, and our restaurants being shut down, they were kind of forced to look for other ways to generate money. So they're doing the delivery work, they're doing curbside drop-off, and selling some of the staple type products out of the restaurants to people that may have needs. So with the truck, if we can make it work, we will try, but there's just a lot of distribution issues and access to supplies that we have not built that linkage or the chain of a linkage to be able to be part of that. But if we can, we certainly will try to do that. Looking at this spring, in some cases I would say we're very fortunate from a melt perspective. We were very concerned with some real serious flooding due to the fact that we've had these 40-degree days and then freezing days. We're seeing a slow melt, and we're feeling extremely comfortable that the flooding is going to be less than it may have had we had a really fast warm-up. With that said, we can't ignore that there's a number of farmers and ranchers out there still trying to get the grain from last year off, and we've been in communications with RMA. We were out in DC in February telling them that they have to come up with some way to make sure these folks qualify for preventive plant if they're forced to leave that crop until June. We were given assurances that that would work. They did say it would be a case-by-case basis when it comes to land that may be changing hands or rented land that has some different situations than the ones that farmers have, that they'd have to come in. But Army assured us that it appears that there's a workable solution and you will qualify for preventive plan. Any questions, Tyrell?
No.
All right. Livestock prices, I think it's important to talk about them. I've taken about 4 or 5 calls. Typically people are describing to me the drop in the value, and I hear numbers anywhere from $250 a head all the way to $325 a head that they've lost over a very short period of time. And we're also studying over 6 months where we've seen box price beef go up 2 times, and the price for the cattle rancher goes down at the same moment. I wish I had a solution to this, but we're going to pursue this quite hard. USDA has at least identified that this is a fact. Our senators are certainly concerned about this and looking at this, but this could be our opportunity to attempt to get someone to pay attention to the inequity of that concentration issues in the processors that are seemingly randomly able to make profits while both the retail side suffers and the farmer and rancher suffers. So this is something we're going to take up and push very hard on. I have had a number of questions on COOL. Well, we continue to fully support COOL and are part of National Farmers Union, really the only organization that has stayed true, that we will continue that path. I will suggest to you that it may take a relabeling concept till truth in labeling, and we're going to have to broaden our scope to get everybody to work towards that label needs to be accurate. We can't be fooling the consumer anymore, and I think we need to go way further than a lot of people would suggest. Slightly disappointed that our Ag Commissioner was a little lippid on the fact that he suggested nobody cares where food comes from. I'm confident that people care where their food comes from, and if we can develop the system, they will certainly benefit the consumer, and it could be an avenue to help us as farmers and ranchers.
Oh, we got a question. Is rural America prepared to handle this? What effect would a long-term situation have here in rural North Dakota?
Well, I can only talk in what my knowledge is, and I'm reading the same things that you folks are reading. I get my information from the CDC. I listen a lot, literally every day, to our governor trying to sort out. I'm worried that we probably aren't prepared for this if it's long-term. And I know we need to spread it out, but I think that it's one of these things where we aren't going to have the equipment in the hospitals. It really will become a numbers game than a time game. I'm not overly concerned about, food for people. I'm not overly concerned about ability to go and do the necessities. What I am concerned about is caring for the folks that get ill, and that's a tough thing. So I would say, hopefully that this thing will peak quicker than we had hoped, and the numbers we got are not going to go substantially higher, and we can see something of a benefit coming forward. But I can't promise you we're prepared. I think we've erred in what we've done at the federal level dramatically, and that's been translating down to the smaller local rural states.
Okay. That's the only question so far.
Okay. I believe there was a question that somebody suggested might come up on the third MFP payment. Well, I have described that very well. I think it's important that we're trying to expand who qualifies. So we've been working really hard on getting canola and sunflower, some of the oil seeds. We also been working quite hard on getting some of the edible beans and so forth to have some qualifications. So in theory, we'd like to expand the crops that qualify, and then we'd like to include the bases and cost of transportation in the part of the bases, and then of course getting some better distribution around geographical places in the country where it's likely we've been impacted harder than we have on the coast. So hopefully we can get that into whatever this new program may look like. that we're assuming will come here after we've seen the CCC get replenished.
Okay, we've got a few more questions now. With the concern about mental health among farmers and ranchers before the virus, how will we handle the increase of isolation now?
Well, if there is a good side of that, we've been distributing what we call a bootstraps brochure. It's a real little pocket handy thing that we've been distributing, and I did not get the count of how many are out there, but I know we've printed at least 10,000. So hopefully, due to the fact that that's been out there, people are well aware of places to call and contact, and I think the solution to that is there. The hard part is getting people to utilize the solution. So we'll continue to encourage folks to pay attention to that. We almost every other month publicize some of those numbers and places to call, and we're going to continue that effort. And I think there's just a good core group out there that's doing that effort. Hopefully that gets in the hands of the people that need that service.
Okay. Is there anywhere to find data where urban people want to know where their food comes from as far as beef, pork, chicken, and etc.?
You know, we've done a study, it's a year or two old, and what we were trying to accomplish was, can we verify that there's a huge demand for identified food? It wasn't specific to the meats as you defined, but it was specific to knowing where your food came from. And we did focus groups actually in Chicago and New York. And the group that did it for us, I believe had, and I'm doing this from memory, but I believe had 600 participants. And we found that they trust farmers more than scientists. We found that they would pay a small premium if they knew where their food was coming from. And we found that there was an interest in being able to understand the labels better. So I think the answer to your question is definitely. Now, it does really translate to that question, can you create that system? And if there is extra cost, can that be translated to the consumer? But I think the study told us it's doable and it can work. So we'll continue to fight that.
Okay. Are there any silver linings that you see coming out of this pandemic other than greater attention to market manipulation by meat packers?
That's a really good question, and I don't want to make light of it because I'm an optimist at heart. I believe that we will come through this. Obviously, we're going to have some pain, and some people experience more than others, which is just unfair, but it's just the way it's going to happen. But from that, I think we're going to start looking at trade agreements in a different light. I think we'll start looking at sourcing our products in a different light. I think the ability for businesses not to be so focused and have some diversity. I think there will be some avenues about priorities. I'm hoping that people find to enjoy the time with their families if they're quarantined, so that becomes a greater factor in their life. So again, as an optimist, I would say we'll get better and we'll get stronger, and some of the stuff we believe in here at Farmers Union will probably get a much larger audience of what we say, because we're really about family a lot here.
That's all for questions. There's a comment about Bismarck taking it more seriously than Fargo.
I've heard rumors of people saying that some communities are taking it more serious, and as of last night, the governor said it very well. There's about half the counties haven't seen anything yet, but that's just it's just a time thing when every community will have one. So I think he said it very well when he said, don't take this for granted. Just because it's not right near you now doesn't mean it won't be soon. It's probably going to come into your community. Again, we hope it spreads out a little bit, and we hope that nobody gets it too serious. But at the end of the day, I think we'll have everybody taking it serious as we see a few more announcements, and that's kind of the sad state of the event, but that's where we're at.
Okay, there's a question, will Farmers Union be part of the conversation when it comes to our election process and potential changes?
We will plan to be part of it if we're allowed. We have not spent a lot of time on this yet, as there's some theory that things beyond the primaries here will still go as planned. But we're seeing the primaries get adjusted and changed as we speak. So it could set the conversation up for how it works into the future here. And of course, we don't know how long this is going to last for sure. So we will try to interject ourselves into that. I'm not able to quote right from our policy, but I will guarantee you that we're all about everyone having the right to vote, and we're going to try to ensure that. And we're going to work very hard that people get that exercise to participate in this democracy.
I'm having trouble seeing the rest of this question. Let's go to the next one. Will NDFU be preparing a summary of the federal stimulus package coming through Congress when the right time comes?
Yeah, I think you can find some of that out there. We did a little work. There will be stuff coming out in our weekly newsletter, the Farmers Union Minute. So you'll see some summary. Again, we were focused on the agriculture sector. For those of you very familiar with the way the legislative process works, it's pretty rare when you have so many groups in working on each one of their issues they're facing. So to get that 2.2 trillion out was pretty miraculous to get it done as quickly as they did, and I'm assuming the House is going to finish voting on it within a day or two here. So with that said, we will start to expand our thought process, exploring some other things, because we strongly support the rural communities we live in too, and that's where we'll need to get some more information out. But if you go to like National Farmers Union, if you go to other places, you'll find a lot of information, and we'll do our best to get that information to you.
All right, and this other question, with so much education to be done, milk being a product from mammals or cashews, soy, almonds, can we help to step up information?
Well, I think we can, and I think we have been. You know, we put out the Farmer Share the Food dollar. We talk a lot about should it ever been almond milk to start with. We talk a lot about where this meat issue is going. I mean, you got the lab-grown meat. You obviously got the Impossible Burger, which is vegetarian. All them things using similar names, and we've been bringing that up on a regular basis. So we're in that loop. We're spend a lot of time discussing that. Again, on the mini flying in February, we did a lot of that work. We were in at least 3 administrative offices where we talked about truth in labeling laws.
All right. Has the state of North Dakota ever looked into having North Dakota branded beef as labeled as such?
I don't think they have. We've talked about this. We're continuing to work on a concept of a brand. Now, I didn't necessarily go down North Dakota branded beef, but I think one thing of caution there would be is, you know, you can go to areas that don't have a lot of the beef products, and you can probably market a branded product from North Dakota. But I would suggest if you took a North Dakota beef product into Texas, it probably wouldn't sell well, because I believe Texas believes they produce better beef. Mm-hmm. So we might have to think about what that label should be, so that it's about the customer knowing the quality rather than the geographical location. Now, that's a hard question. Now, I think when you get beyond the borders of the U.S., it is a whole different story, because then you can talk about the growing conditions and what they can do when they grow meat or anything. And when we live by rules with interstate commerce and stuff, we got to be a little careful. So I think a USA beef product or something that identifies it to this continent or something like that would be a greater merit than by state, but that's an opinion.
Okay. How do you explain the empty meat cases in Sam's and etc. when reportedly there is no shortage of available meat?
It's just a simple of hoarding. It's no different than the toilet paper issue. People are grabbing it, taking it home, freezing it. They're in panic mode, and I don't criticize them for being in panic mode. I criticize them because they're not doing a sharing thought process where we all need access. But I would say it's definitely a problem, and it could get worse. But we're not finding, because we've offered to haul meat products to the East Coast, and we're hearing most places don't have a problem getting it. It just tends to disappear every other day at the grocery store, but they tend to be able to fill them back up again.
All right.
Is that it for questions? questions?
I think that's it for questions.
Well, I want to thank everybody that listened in today, and this is new to us, so we will probably continue an approach like this, and I'm sure we'll garner more listeners, and we'll try to have more information. Certainly, if you want, send to our Facebook page at NDFU, and we'll try to couch the topic to what you might want to hear if we do this in the near future. So thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you again sometime.